And yes, realize that there will be division. You can't get around it. Reject the division and move on. Because here's what the divisive man is doing to himself. Verse 11. Knowing that such a person is warped, sinning, being self-condemned. They are Mephibosheth standing near God's grace and saying, but I'm a dead dog. And I say to you, we have no room to receive abundance in our heart from God and His grace as long as our focus is self-condemnation. Self-condemnation is the killer poison in the water of life. And when you get people in a condemning mentality, where they always condemn themselves. I don't care how many times you stand up and scream to them that condemning your own sin will make you look at Jesus. That is a warped message. Right. I didn't make that word up. It is warped. Warped to condemn yourself. I'm preaching to the choir. I know that you're not condemning, self-condemning people. So why am I giving you this today? Because I want you to know why, when you come through the door, we affirm constantly. I want you to know why it's proper to affirm constantly. And I want you to start to affirm constantly. Why? Because it's profitable and it's good for you and it's good for them. And why would you not want what's good for you and good for them? Get out of this dead dog, self-condemning, fighting, divisive, argumentative mentality. We're not winning souls through this, but in Christ and a constant affirmation, lives are being changed, both here and abroad, and all over. And I thank God for it. Take it. Run with it. Affirm constantly. Find excuses to affirm. Find reasons to affirm. Don't look at it as a weakness. Look at it as looking like your daddy. Look at it as looking more like Jesus than the church has ever looked before when we affirm constantly. You say, well, how are people going to know that they're a sinner if we don't constantly tell them? I'm amazed that anybody in Jesus' presence ever figured it out. I mean, he walked into a room with whores, tax collectors. Tax collector to a Jew was a child molester in the American mentality. And he never had to point out what was wrong with them. They just gravitated to his kindness. Isn't it interesting that the only people in 4 Gospels that Jesus told what was wrong with them was religious people who kept bringing up all of their good works. I find it fascinating that the dregs of society found rest at the feet of a man who never bothered to tell them that they were the dregs of society. And yet when they got up and walked out, they never felt like they did when they walked in. Because for the moment he opened his mouth, he affirmed constantly, neither do I condemn thee, go and sin no more. Son, thy sins be forgiven you. You remember that one where they tore the hole in the roof and they lowered the man down? You know what's wrong with what Jesus did? Please understand I'm being tongue-in-cheek here. Do you know what's wrong with what Jesus did? The man didn't ask for forgiveness. And yet Jesus said to him, son, thy sins be forgiven thee. Get up and walk. That's wrong preaching. You didn't even tell him how big of a sinner he was. You didn't give an invitation so he could even figure out that he was a sinner. You never even proved him as a sinner. And you don't even know that he wants your love. Affirm constantly. Where did Paul figure that out? Every time he and Jesus had a meeting, Jesus kept affirming constantly. Paul meets Jesus on the road to Damascus. He's Saul, Christian killer. The blood is still dripping from his sword. He's a terrorist. And yet God doesn't bring it up. Instead, he says to you, I'm going to deliver you from the Gentiles. I'm going to make you a voice. Affirm constantly.